Welcome to Trust the Process Show. Your host, Chris Reed, and I'm super excited today to be joined by Adam Leipzig. Adam is a CEO, speaker, former National Geographic, Disney executive. And Adam, thanks for joining today.
It's great to be here. By the way, I say it Leipzig.
Leipzig, my apologies.
Although I change it up on people all the time, and I have to spell my name about 20 times a day. So
Okay. All right, Adam Leipzig. So appreciate you joining Adam Leipzig. Thanks for coming today. I know I've been reaching out to you for a while, and we just kind of quickly touched before we went live, but it sounds like you've been up to a few things. So now that things have slowed down, again, appreciate you stopping by the show.
Okay, I'm back home in Los Angeles, and it is like a vacation to be home.
I bet it is.
That much travel.
I bet. And the traveling is one of those things, right? It's great at times, and it gets pretty tiring some other times as well.
It's terrific to be someplace, and it's great that people have asked one to be someplace. Getting there, terrible.
Yeah, it really
The whole
is.
process. I really want like the Star Trek teleportation thing to happen already. I've been waiting for it for my whole life.
It would make vacation so much more special if you could just do that, right? I just flew from Seattle. I was there Thursday, and I'm only in Vancouver, so it's really only a 40-minute flight, and it turns out to be about a 6-hour adventure going to the airport, right? So if you could just kind of, we're there, easy.
Right.
Anyways, so Adam, the story, the theme of the show, trust the process. I kind of mentioned why I was attracted to you, and I think the total count right now is 12 million plus. I've seen your TED Talk YouTube video, which is, you're looking at your face. It's pretty remarkable, hands off to you for making that much of an impact, right?
Yeah.
But wanted to connect with you, not only just because your TED Talk, but even your background of what you've accomplished, and really want to connect with you. What does trust the process mean to you? I know you've talked a little bit about life's purpose. So we'd love to open up the conversation on your side to get a sense for what really that means on your side, and how that's kind of helped put you to where you are today. And even more importantly, where are you going next is my biggest question as well.
Right. Well, the answer to where I've been and where I'm going is kind of the same, because I'm a curious person and I follow my curiosity.
Okay.
Where my curiosity leads me it led me to the most wonderful adventure. From theater to film to feature films to documentaries, teaching and writing and sharing information with others, and now moving more and more into education. I'm just curious, and I think curiosity, when coupled with a values-centered approach to life, kind of takes you to where you want to go. One of the beautiful things about being curious is that you're always learning. I'm always learning things. Every project I do, I get to meet amazing people, learn things that I never knew before, and that keeps it fascinating.
That's great. And that's that curiosity mindset. And then it sounds like you having some values, you having some passions, being curious in those areas sounds like it's opened up doors that maybe you didn't even know existed. Is that right?
It does. I think it also tends to attract opportunities and others to be part of your team, to be your collaborators. People collaborate for a whole bunch of reasons, but not a whole bunch of good reasons. There's really only one or two good reasons to collaborate. And those are, you like the people you're working with, and there's a values alignment in the purpose of collaboration. Collaborating just because you think it's going to be cool, not good enough. Collaborating because you think you're going to make a lot of money, not good enough. Collaborating for good relationship and for good values, or a good sense of purpose. Those have been my guide stars, and they've worked for me. And I'll bet that it's been very similar for you as well.
Yeah, no, and that's the truth. Yeah, no, I think for me, what I've learned, I started my career off in the military, then I moved into tech and then into coaching. Is it really is about who you connect yourself with. And if there is a disalignment with the values of other people, it shows pretty quickly.
And you've got to trust your gut, because you feel it. And when you feel it, you have to say, thank you so much. It's been great, but just not a good fit.
Absolutely.
And exit that process. which sometimes is hard for people, even if there, there might be a lot of money on the table. But ultimately, life is too short, and that that pot of gold may not have been real anyway. But relationships are real, and
Yeah,
I just
it's
believe that.
kind of one of those things as you look back to the end of the day of, we obviously all want to live a very long, healthy life, but some things I've been doing is kind of reflecting on like what I want to be remembered for, not so much about what I did, but maybe who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's kind of what I hear there too, is isn't so much about like just getting that pot of gold, but it's about that value and the relationship that you've created
Right.
with the people. So when you leave,
Right.
people remember Adam for who he was rather than for the things that he did. Is that kind of what I'm following there?
Yeah. Well, what do you really take with you when we die?
Yeah.
Alas, we all die. But when we die, we don't take our money. We don't take our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The relationships.
Right.
The relationships are what stay behind, and I think the relationships are kind of what you take with you.
So for you, like, so when you started your career, Adam, even into that kind of film side, have you always had this kind of outlook, or was there a shift for you when you realized like, oh my God, I'm doing it, I should be doing it differently? Or have you always been, this insightful? Because you do have a very good insight in terms of how you see the world and how the world presents back to you. But has that always been the case? For anyone who's listening,
Yeah.
how do they make that shift?
Yeah. I uh, the, uh, the career that people know me for is for my film career, but I had a whole career for 7 years before that, which is my theater career, where
Okay.
I worked in theater as a dramaturg and a producer. We built a theater called the Los Angeles Theater Center. I produced 300 plays, events, concerts, performances over a 7-year period. And I worked for between $800 and $1,000 a month, not a week, for that period of time. So when you're in theater, you are always values driven because you're not there to go make a lot of money.
Right. Okay.
That's just if theater. I went from the most unprofitable thing in America, which is theater, to one of the more profitable things, which is the film and television business.
Right.
But my whole start and my bedrock was in theater. We're all just there because we care, because it's interesting, because it's curious, and because the working process to create something of art and beauty in theater is so long and intimate that you will be working on a play with someone for a year, and then you will be in rehearsal for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you will run for 6 to 8 weeks, and you are with each other all the time, breathing each other's air for 8 or 10 hours a day. That shaped who I am and how I came to value people and relationships, the right group of people. And I often think about how you cast the entire circle, with not just the people in front of the camera, but how you cast the people around the table with you, how you cast the people in your company and your team members, so you have the right level of collaboration or the right level of different skills and talents that all bring it together, but where everybody's really pulling together in the same direction.
Mm. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that contribution of, because I don't even know, you tell me, and even because you move from like the theater where it's like everyone has their role, and there's that respect for everybody. And then you kind of go into that film and TV where you said, I went from like the least amount of money, we doing it because we love it. We're not doing it because we're getting rich. We're eating KD every couple nights for dinner. To
Right.
you're doing well, right? You're working with stars. What was the shift or difference from going from theater to film and TV? Is there anything, that dynamic of collaboration? Do egos get more involved because there's more money? And how does somebody stick to their purpose with that now in the equation?
There's definitely a lot more ego on display in the film and
Okay.
TV universe. Um, at the same time, it's in some ways, it's a more attenuated process. And you work on so many things to get any one thing to happen. I also found that, everyone talks about, I want to go make a movie, I want to go get on the set. But in the movie world, there are movies that I worked on for 10 years before they got made. And then you're on the set for 15 weeks, and then it takes a year to get released. So you might have a 12-year cycle, but there's only 12 or 15 weeks on the set, and you work so hard to get on the set, but that's not really the most of your time. Um, but again, look, the beautiful thing about the film and the media universe is that, yes, it has the most egocentric, venal, inappropriate, morally questionable people in the world.
Okay.
It also has the most beautiful, creative, collaborative, generous, loving, spectacular people in the world.
Mm.
And the and for me, the mechanism to work well is to be able to walk down that line and to understand that occasionally you have to deal with the people you'd rather not deal with, but 99% of the time deal with people you want to deal with. There are hundreds or thousands of movies made every year. You're not going to make every one. You can make the one with the people that you really care about and be really happy. And I learned very early on that you shouldn't make a movie just because you can, just because you can get the money, because it could be a really terrible movie. I learned that often the movies that are hardest to make are the ones that are most beautiful at the end. It's something about that creative, the difficulty of the process and the crucible of creative friction and tension sometimes produces sharp, beautiful, diamond-like results. And that values matter just as much in film and television as they do in theater. It's just that you don't always notice that.
Right. Because you mentioned there, it can take, it sounds like over a decade for some projects.
A decade.
And that's a long time. Like that is even if you live to be 100, that's still 10% of your life.
Yeah, of course, it's not the only thing you're doing over those 10 years. Because as a producer, by the way, you're not being paid for those 10 years. And most of the time, the only reason the project survives is because a producer who's not being paid is just blowing on the embers, keeping the fire from going out for that period of time until all the right things can come together. And even so, most of the projects that you work on don't get made. So you have to be working on a lot of things. I've had the fortune to make 33 films, but the only reason I made 33 films is because I tried to make 330 films. And 90% of them did not get made, but I just kept getting up and going back at it to get the ones made that were able to get made.
That's a great point. And I think many people probably don't even realize that. I didn't. And I think that's like anything, even outside of film, is that not everything you do is going to succeed or be a success as we call it. But I think there's still successes, and those are learning opportunities, right?
Yeah, you learn every one that didn't get made, you learn from why it didn't get made. And even the ones that you make, they're not perfect. They don't all win Academy Awards. They don't all make money. So you know, and you're doing something different every time. Yeah, so you learn something from every single one of them. And every film I've set about producing, I always try to do better than the one before. As a producer, to somehow do my job, practice my craft and my art in a way that is improved from the last one. And whatever my next one's going to be, I'll try to be better than the one that I just finished.
Right. So it's just that constant, almost obsession of improvement.
Yeah, and curiosity again. Just just trying to let curiosity drive me.
Was there ever a film, Adam, that was kind of like maybe hit you really hard, and you're like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore? Like I know you seem like a guy who has a very good purpose.
Every single one, Chris.
Every single one. Okay. Thank you for the honesty.
This is particularly for people who are filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers. It is so hard to get a movie made. And I've often thought, like, what is the psychic reason that it is so hard to get a movie made? I have an answer to this question. When you, now it's now the 8th weekend you're shooting. You have had 5 hours of sleep for maybe, if you're lucky, for the past 8 weeks. And you're shooting 6 days a week. And the Sunday that is off, it's not really off because you're planning your next week. You're over budget. You were supposed to be shooting a beautiful exterior, but suddenly there's a flash flood and you have to move indoors. The actors won't come out of their trailer. The director is upset. The writer is yelling at you. The studio is calling on the phone, screaming, and you just want to slit your wrists. Why don't you do that? Because it took you 8 years to get here. And it was so hard to get here, you would never slit your wrist, even though it's terrible.
Right. So it's this really that. So for you, like, I know you talked on your TED talk about your life purpose, and there's got to be a deep level of a guy like yourself who's gone through like probably more headaches and pain points than celebrations, right?
Definitely.
How much is your purpose, and like, we'll call it your why, whatever it may be, how much does that really keep you accountable to that desired outcome, so that when you go to that point of like, I just want to celebrate, I'm done, that it keeps you still, you know, like, I put the time in, but it keeps you moving? Because I think you must have some sort of clear idea of the purpose of why you're doing this. And what is that why for you, Adam?
My why is to create ideal environments for creative people to do their best work.
Okay.
And that's very simple, and we could go into what offshoots from that, but that's it in a very capsulated phrase. So even in the midst of that terrible day that I just described, it's still my job to, you know, we still have a lot of creative people on the set, and we still have to get a day's work done. We got to do something for this day when it's raining outside, and we don't have a good cover set to go to. So I still have to find something which is aligned with why I'm here. And it took me. Look, I think whatever life purpose is we always have the ability to change it over time and shift it as we grow and evolve. Like many people, years and years ago, I thought I might want to be a director. When I was in theater, I directed one show. I discovered I don't have a director's DNA, but I do have a producer's DNA. That was a really great thing for me to discover, that there was this thing that I thought I wanted to do. I tried it, and you know what? I just wasn't as good at it as other people, and I felt panicked and uncertain. I didn't really know how to talk with actors in a way that was helpful to them as a director, to help them with their performances. But then when I stepped back and discovered I'm really good as a producer, I'm really good at organizing and creating situations and talking to actors as a producer, not as a director, and talking to directors as a producer. Then I found that it's what I do well, and it's very much aligned with who I am.
Right. So it's, even though you have a passion and your passion be film, there still is that even further detail of what is inside that passion that's best suited to who you are and the values and the reasons you do things. And because that could be, and we talked about people even just being stuck in anything these days. It just could be a little bit of a tweak, right? Where you're saying, not a director, but I'm a producer. And next thing you know, your life is way more fulfilling and not so swimming upstream, but really going with the stream.
Right. You know, I do a lot of, like you, I work with a lot of people, and I've worked with a lot of people and helping them figure out their career paths, get jobs. So I've probably worked with 300 or 400 people over the past 15 years or so to actually get them into jobs. And I remember there was one gentleman who quit a Wall Street job, came to see me. He was about a 35-year-old man. He said, "I've always wanted to be an agent. And I quit my job on Wall Street to be an agent because I hated Wall Street." I said, "Great, I'm happy you quit your job that you hated. Are you sure you really want to be an agent?" He says, yes, I really want to be an agent. I've studied all about it." And I worked with him, and he ended up getting a really nice job at an agency. 4 months later, he was back in my office and said, "I hate it. I didn't realize that an agent's job is calling people on the phone and yelling at them." Now, parenthesis, that's not really what an agent always does, but I guess at this agency, that's what they did. So that was his. I said, "Okay, that's great. You only spent 4 months, and you're now only 35 and a half years old.
Right.
And now you can take that thing, put it aside. You tried it. You aren't going to be a 60-year-old guy and say, 'Wow, I wish I would have tried that.' You tried it. Done. Next. Now let's move on and find something you really want to do." So I think it's great to try things, but also discover just like when I talked about before, in a relationship or in a team, if there's something that's not right, you got to call it out and with graciousness say, I'm sorry, this isn't the right fit. I think it's the same with career stuff. And um, I think often, particularly in the entertainment and media business, people have an image of what it is like,
Mm.
which is quite at odds with the reality of the day to day. And when they get into it, you got to really have a good gut check and say, this is really what I want to do. This is how I want to spend my days. There are some people, probably most people, for whom being a producer day to day would be anathema. They would hate having to look at all those details and try to figure out, how do you get the elephants to show up on the hill at the crack of dawn tomorrow morning because the director needs them and she just called you 5 minutes ago. I kind of love that challenge, but
Okay.
it's a special kind of person who wants to do that gig.
Sure. Now for that then, because you especially, I imagine, like, and I don't know the complexities, but I imagine there's a ton of people that are a part of these production shoots that you do, right? Like there's a lot of different roles.
Yes, there are, depending on the scale of the project. If it's very small, 10. If it's larger, there could be 500 on a given day.
So for the people that are below you then, Adam, or that are working with you, then they're just not really in their spot that they need to be, or they're just maybe stuck. As a leader, what have you done that might help somebody, even if it's outside of film? It's just, I think, leadership in general. How have you helped those people to kind of make that switch, either say, this really isn't for me, or to reframe it and go, okay, I need to look at this differently?
Right. Obviously this does not apply to people who are on a one-day shoot with you, but when you're in a management role, and I've run companies, so in that kind of management role where you are hiring people or working with people on a long-term basis, where you might be working with people for years, I actually think it is the manager's job to know your key to know the people that are your core team well enough to understand who they are and what they want to be, and how this particular role is going to grow them on their career trajectory, including that it may cause them to leave you one day, because that's where they may need to get promoted up and you don't have a space for them, or they may discover something that they want to do more and they need to leave. And that's actually your job. That you need to actually groom people, either to replace you, or to grow and leave, or to grow with the company because the company is growing. And I actually think that's really good management, because that's the responsibility and the joy of managing a team, is that just as being a producer is to create a great ecosystem for creative people to do their work, so too a great manager or a leader is to create a great ecosystem for your team to do their work and to grow, which might mean they leave, or you give them the training opportunities so they can get other skills and then they can move on. But I think that's really what good management is.
Right. So just that connection piece, and it sounds that's been a big piece of just understanding who you're working with and what really is maybe their life purpose, right? I mean, if they're in a spot where it doesn't match their purpose, then
you got to take the time to do that. You have to take the time. You have to care, and I don't mean getting into people's business and like getting inappropriately personal with them, but you do have to take the time to care and know enough about them in an appropriate way, to be a guide and a mentor to them, to be really transparent with your decision making, including the places where you messed up, places where you're not sure, places where you're doing your best, because I think that also helps to groom them in their role and decision making process. I'm kind of a member of the Enough Rope School of Management, which is that I give people I work with a lot of, I really care about hiring excellent people. Okay. And I take a long time to make a hire. Actually, and I take a long time to hire and a very short time to fire. So as soon as I know someone's not right, I help them move on. But I take a long time to try to make the call who to hire. So the number of people that have to get fired is minimal because you've made the right choice at the beginning. But then I believe in enough rope, which is enough rope to climb up or to kind of make a mistake and hang yourself, but I'll always be there to catch you. And I really won't let you go to the end of the rope, because we all learn from making mistakes. And I believe in giving my team members enough leeway to go out and try some things and show their genius. And if it's about to be a disaster, I will step in and say, no, we got to do it this way. But maybe they're going to think of something that I never would have thought of. It would have been better. And then we get to do that. I was just, I was telling you before we started recording, I was just in Saudi Arabia doing a training program for the Public Investment Fund, which is the sovereign wealth fund there. 40 trainees in that fund. I was doing it in collaboration with the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley, where I'm on faculty. And I brought 2 of my former students who had been through training with me to help to co-faculty that class, because with 40 students, I wanted a couple of other people to give them individual attention, and really increase the student-teacher ratio. And those 2 individuals, both who are MBA graduates, one who's from Nigeria, one is from Guatemala, they came in with some amazing ideas, including a whole case study exercise that I never would have even imagined that was brilliant. And it was just an example of, okay, let's try this and let's really work and shape it. But it was her idea. It was a brilliant idea. She executed it really well. And it was an opportunity all the way around. For me, that was a perfect example of creating opportunities within a specific boundary and framework, where someone I was working with could succeed at something she'd never tried before, and it could be good for everybody.
So that's great. So, and it's not, so what I'm hearing is it wasn't just about your way, like I'm the guy on top and it's the way I do it. Is you foster people to allow them to see things the way they see things and support them either through that success or that, we'll call it a learning opportunity more so than a failure, but just an opportunity where they learned how to do it.
I mean, look, good management is not just being the guy on top, or the person on top and being authoritarian and saying, I'm the person on top, I get to make the decisions. You're the person on top because someone does ultimately need to make decisions, and groups and companies need clear decision making so they know what they're doing. But the other reason in a meritocracy, people rise to the top because they've done it a lot, and so there's pattern recognition, and that's valuable in a way that authoritarian decision making is not valuable. Pattern recognition is, okay, I've done this 100 times before. You think it's going to be purple, but it's really going to be green. I've seen a lot of people think it was going to be purple, but it's always green, and I'm going to save you a lot of time and tell you it's going to be green. So let's say it's going to be green, and let's move on to the next step. And that pattern recognition is really valuable because, ultimately it saves a lot of time and it does cohere an organization.
Absolutely. Like you said. So for you, I guess, we talk about just a couple failure points, and I know we have just a few minutes left here, but I'd love to know if there was a time that we'll call it, like I said, I like to call them a learning opportunities. We'll call it a failure or learning opportunity. Was there one that you can think back to, Adam, that really changed, like made the biggest impact on your career or even in your life? Doesn't have to be even just your work career, but your whole life of that happened and that created you to do something so drastically different that it just moved you down a path maybe that never would have.
Well, there are movies that I have worked on that I have desperately loved that turned out to be absolute box office abject failures. There's a beautiful documentary that we released when I was running National Geographic Films called God Grew Tired of Us, about 3 refugees from Sudan who come to America and their experience here. I think it's one of the most beautiful, emotionally moving documentaries ever made. I saw it at Sundance. I was so emotionally moved. I turned to my colleague who was watching with me, and I said to her, "We're going to buy this because I loved it." And nobody came to the party.
Really?
Nobody came to the party. And there have been a few times like that where I felt such love with something that, and I made a substantial investment, and then nobody came to the party. And my learning experience there was, in the movie business, sometimes you should just buy a ticket and not buy the movie.
Mm.
If you know, if you know what I mean.
That's well said.
That I had to be that. It trained me. It trained me to be more data driven, to moderate my emotional decision making with some more data points, and to be, and to really calibrate that better. Also, to have people around me who are gonna check my emotional impulses in the same way that I could check their emotional impulses with other experiences and better data points. So that, and I think probably the longest term effect on that is that it really helped me think about how I want to construct my team, to make sure I don't have people who just say yes, that I have people who are smart, differently talented in areas where I may not be as expert, and that for big decisions, we're going to, ultimately, if it's my company, I may have to make the decision, but I'll want to get a lot of input from really smart people who have different points of view.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a quote, and I love talking to people like you, because these little quotes come out, and I'm maybe a big quote guy, but when you said, like, sometimes it's about just buying the ticket and not buying the film.
Yeah.
And that right there, that was well, beautifully said, my friend, and I appreciate that story there.
Happy to be quotable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Adam, again, I just wanted to share my appreciation, you taking time to connect with me today, and really talk about what trusting the process meant to you, and how it's taken you from where you are, at the beginning of being in the theater and making nothing, and then making that transition to creating some beautiful films,
making no money, but making good art.
Yeah.
Like what are we making, right? Because, by the way, the plays that we worked on, the relationships that we built there, those sustain. Mm-hmm. They're plays that we produced 35 years ago that people are still doing. So we didn't make money. We're fine, right?
Yeah.
I'm still alive. I always went to bed having had dinner, and it's like, it's fine. I didn't live in Bel Air, but I lived. So yeah, it was all good.
And those experiences shaped you to what you're doing now, and every step along the way is that process, right? It's not always it's never really about the end result. I mean, in film, I'm sure you guys work to the end result, but it's all these little steps along the way that we can't rush that, and we can't skip that, because that is what shapes us to that end.
Yeah, we definitely can't skip it, because you skip an important step, we can predict the end result will be defective in some way.
Yeah, cool. Adam, thank you so much.
So good to talk with you, Chris. Thank you so much. I hope you have a spectacular rest of your day.
You as well. Enjoy that sunshine down in beautiful California.
Thank you.
Okay, my friend. Thanks so much.